Nested statements can get pretty nasty as you embed more and more within your code. You can basically take a nested statement, put another argument, and then another argument, and then another argument, and you can just imagine how confusing and how lost you can get very quickly. If you make a mistake along the way, your code won't compile and it won't run. So I'm going to give you some tips in this video on how to get past that. Start out with some kind of workbook and then insert a module to get started. If you want, you can go ahead and download the resulting workbook from my website, that'ssobasic.com. Let's get started. Call your procedure sub-nested statements. And we'll start out with maybe a basic worksheet loop. So for each worksheet and worksheets. And then I'm going to end this loop by typing next worksheet, which I'm denoting here as WS. And if I wanted to use option explicit, that would force me to declare all my variables. I typed in WS as worksheet to declare that this is a worksheet type object. Now this is going to loop through every worksheet within my workbook. If you look over here, I have inside nested statements, only one worksheet, so it's not a very exciting loop. But this loop's pretty easy to keep track of because I can see here the variable named WS is involved both in the beginning line of the loop to start the loop and the ending line of the loop. So I have next worksheet down here, and if this was to, say, run off the page, I could still pretty easily tell what this corresponds to. But if we imagine we put an if statement next that says if y equals x, then do something. I'm going to close out my if statement, and this is very important, in the same indenting as it started. And you don't want to have all of your statements lining up. This is going to get really confusing later. So you want to indent one for every logical statement. And so as soon as I go into this if statement, I should indent over one more. And if you use the tab key on your keyboard, that allows you to indent a set number of spaces that conveniently lines things up. And that works in Visual Basic. It doesn't work the same in all languages because sometimes this is interpreted as spaces and then your code might not be happy. Like Python works a little differently, but this works great in Visual Basic. So next, if I was to say if user input equals true, imagine that all of these variables have been defined in some way or another. Then something else happens. And I put another end if, and I'm probably going to do something else here. So if all these criteria are met, I get to a worksheet, I get to the point where y equals x, and I get to user input being true. Well, we should also declare these. Let's say y as double and x as double. Again, just made up variables. They don't really matter too much for this example. Okay, so what we'll do here is imagine that you are then going to do a whole bunch of stuff inside of this if statement, and everything kind of goes off the page. Well, obviously this is a little confusing if I don't leave any notes for myself. So I like to put stuff like in comments, starting with a single quote, y equals x. Oops. And here, user input selection. Something that corresponds pretty clearly with whatever the statement was above. And if I couldn't remember what this was, maybe I would just say that I'm looping through worksheets. So this way, when it goes off the page, I can see what lines up and not have to, what I used to do starting out is I'd place my cursor on the end if and I would scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, and I'd say, oh yeah, it looks like it goes with that one. And I realized over time that it didn't really kill me to just take some decent notes in terms of my commenting within my code. I recommend extensive commenting within your code because you could easily end up 15 statements and you're writing a bunch of stuff over here and you need to be able to make sure what's going on. So I hope that this is helpful. I would say definitely make sure you're following your indenting. It's good for you when reading your own code as well as others. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in the next lecture.